Do you think that white privilege is a thing? Like, you think it's a real thing?
I live it. So yes, it is a real thing.
In which way? I want to really know more about this.
White privilege is when you are worrying about stupid shit that has mainly to do with commodity, and that's your main worry. That's white privilege to me.
How so?
When life doesn't become the thing that you become worried about. Rather, it's a commodity that you're worried about. It's the selfie that you become worried about. It is the most superficial shit that you become worried about. And school is not even one of them. Why? Because white privilege secures your school. You live up to the expectation already to go to college. That's white privilege. College becomes a part of your life. And education becomes part of your life. Oh, wait a second. Let me tell you what white privilege is. That you're employed by the time that you graduate from college. Let me tell you the other thing. That you can afford a $70,000 a year institution. That's white privilege.
But if that's the case, wouldn't you also make the argument that there's such a thing as Asian privilege? Because if you look at the statistics, and I was looking at them today, the U.S. Census Bureau of 2017 and 2016, they reported that the median income of a Asian American is actually higher than a white American. And what would you say against something like that?
I would say this. In a situation of racial profiling, who will get away? The Asian or the white guy?
Well, I'd hope that it wouldn't matter on the race or the ethnicity. It mattered on the crime that's being committed.
The crime that's being committed, right? Let's go on with that. What is the crime being committed within a white and an Asian, right? Then it becomes, I think, a question of, is there even a crime being committed, right? Is it even been filed? So the communities that these people come from is another privilege.
Right.
Because the news has become this whole false shit that, the news in itself, it just becomes this network of false, almost I feel like it's a false advertisement. That's how I see it, right? And yeah, it might be that there is Asian American privilege. There might be that's a thing, but that's notwithstanding the fact that there's still minorities in this country.
So you think that white privilege is more of a social issue rather than a systematic one? Or would you say or argue that it's both?
White privilege is a social and an institutional,
because this
and
whole
a systematic.
The idea or the notion of white privilege was partially what led to the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
Yeah. And then the All Lives Matter movement, which is fucking stupid, but yeah.
Yeah, and people that were on that movement were saying that, oh well, they don't kill white people like they kill the black people, and that's actually not true. Police kill more white people than they do black people annually, and there's a statistic on that. So as you see here, you can see that there is in fact a disparity between the deaths that are committed by police, and they do in fact tend to kill more white people than black people. And I think my reasoning for that would be that people are more careful about killing a black person in today's time than a white person, because they know that the negative backlash that the police department would get. So this is the years 2019, 2018, and 2017.
Okay, so
and it's entirely okay, because this is a misconception that a lot of people have, that police are killing black people at a far greater rate than they are white people, but that's actually not true if you look at the statistics. And I would really want people to look this up themselves and see for themselves that this is in fact true.
So in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement,
right?
So the Black Lives Matter movement is, to me, the way I understood it, is a movement that happens in terms of not having black lives being killed for their race.
Right. I don't believe that this is, or not in all cases. I think in the majority of the cases, it's not really, police are not killing people because they are racist. I feel like there's just a lack of training, or there's a lack of of actually hiring people that are capable to be a police officer. Because in my opinion, to be a police officer, you have to have certain qualities. You have to have fearlessness. You have to have control of yourself in very critical situations. And I feel like not everybody, I feel like the majority of people don't have those qualities. I feel like that's what it is more than anything. I feel like it's not, or it has far less to do with racism than it actually does with lack of training or lack of qualities, lack of skills.
I think it might have to do with both, right?
Okay.
You know, and I can see how the lack of training is a huge aspect of it, you know, but it's also still become a racial thing, because there's still this profiling that happens, no matter what race you are. There still is a profiling that happens, because our society has become very superficial and it stigmatizes groups for their color.
Look at the population in this area. The majority is Hispanic.
Yeah.
I believe that the statistic is somewhere above 90%. It's Hispanic. Excuse me. So the people that you pull over here are going to be Hispanic. And the people, the police officers that are assigned this location, they can't move out of it. They have to work in this area, like the people that are assigned this area.
Yeah.
So if they're going to pull someone over, it's most likely going to be Hispanic.
Yeah. Well, in that case, it could be, right? But I guess, and I go back to the same where, why did they stop him then?
Right. I mean, he has all the right to tell the police officers,
My sister
what's
did.
What's your probable cause?
My sister went to go tell them off. And my sister being a sociology major,
I wonder what they told him when they pulled him over. Did they tell him? Because I think
they said he did not have a right to speak.
Really?
Yeah.
They told him you have no right to speak?
Yeah. Right? That's why we believe in racial profiling. That's why we believe that there's all these social movements that are happening, because no one really knows unless you become a part of the police force how these profiling cases come to be, and how you choose your victims, and how you choose and select who are you going to be stopping and who are you not going to be stopping, right? And that's why the Black Lives Matter movement comes into, and where all of this, it all just comes up to be because there is no explanation.
I'd like to believe that the police department is not this evil entity or this evil force that people like to say it is, because I mean, for the most part, the experiences that I've had, and I know this is entirely subjective to my experiences, have been pretty well. And I know a couple police officers. My mom is friends with them, and I mean, they're just regular people like me and you. But like I said, I think the problem that arises is when you hire people that, just like I said, don't have the qualities to react to critical situations.
Correct.
When to draw the gun, or when to actually pin someone to the ground and choke them and forcibly handcuff them. You know what I mean? There a lot of people like that do exist. But I'd like to believe that the police department is doing its best job to hire people that have the qualities, or that people that have the skills to be able to respond to critical situations. But like I said, there's a lot of people that go into this department, and not a lot of them are also well qualified.
I would like to believe that too.
So
because I to an extent can believe it, to an extent I can't.
I mean,
I'm not saying that police officers, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that are evil at all. I'm not saying that. That's not what I stand for. They're also people. They're also humans,
exactly.
Right? But what I am saying, though, is become a systematic issue.
Reason I'm strongly opposed to white privilege is for the fact that I feel like it creates this victimhood culture, and I feel like that's not beneficial to a lot of people, because I feel that the best kind of encouragement you could get from someone is telling someone that they could do everything they can or set their minds to. I remember listening to Dr. Ochoa in 11th grade class, and she would always bring up the fact that we're minority groups, that we can't do anything, that because there's a system in place that's hindering us from reaching our full capabilities, and that white people are doing better, we're going to be struggling all our lives. But I feel that kind of talk isn't really beneficial. It might be to certain people.
It was to you.
It wasn't. It actually made me feel really terrible about myself the moment I'd walk out of that class, because I'd feel like, damn, I really can't. And I remember I had this pessimistic view of the world after that. And I'd be talking to Damien after school, like, man, Dr. Acho is right. Like, we can't do anything. Like, I don't even want to go to college no more. You know, I was already planning the moment I graduated to not go to college, because I felt that what she told me.
You felt in a system, captured, I felt incarcerated.
Like, whereas I feel if you tell like students that you could do anything, that you could do anything that you put your mind to, that kind of feedback is what's actually going to do more benefit than actually bringing about this victimhood culture.
I have a very phenomenal scholarship advisor. Mm-hmm. His name is Gregory Cozolas. He's a white male, heterosexual male, and he's giving his money to me for a better education and more opportunity. He recognizes his white privilege.
You think so?
Yes, that's why he's giving his money away.
Well, what do you say to the people that are white and don't necessarily have a lot of money? Where's their white privilege then? Wouldn't you say that it's more about a wealth privilege rather than race privilege? Because I feel like you've been saying all these things about white people want their money, but like the thing that keeps coming up repeatedly is their money. And wouldn't you say then that it is this wealth that's this wealth privilege rather than race privilege? Because I've met people that are white that are doing fairly bad or that are poor. Yeah. I've worked at warehouses filled with white people as well.
They're struggling, yes.
Yeah.
They're struggling just like...
Where exactly is their white privilege then?
Well, their white privilege to me is that they've fucked it over. Their white privilege.
No, but this is the thing. The problem with white privilege, in my opinion, is that when you say white privilege, who are you talking about exactly? Are you talking about like people that came during the colonial era, or are you talking about the wave of immigrants that came in the 19th century? Because there was a lot of immigrants that came from Italy, that came from like Switzerland during that era or that time. German people came during that time, and they are white, but they don't necessarily. They don't really.
They didn't come with the same Protestant privilege.
Their ancestry doesn't trace back to colonialism. I was talking to one of my good friends, Jackson from Weird Wave Coffee. He set up his shop here in Boyle Heights not too long ago. He's actually, I believe, an Italian. He's a descendant of an Italian family, and he came after colonialism. Yet people protest him. They vandalize his shop. They spray paint his area, or they throw paint at his area. They break his glass windows simply because of the fact that he's white. And there's this group called the Defend Boyle Heights Coalition here in Boyle Heights that repeatedly harassed this man, that said, oh, we don't want him here because he's white. And so that's the problem I have with white privilege, that it's creating this antagonism on people just simply based on the color of their skin.